If you've spent the last year using Claude at work, writing the prompts your team copies, building the project everyone relies on, catching the hallucination before it reached a client, then here's something you should know. Anthropic now runs a proctored, identity-verified exam for exactly those skills, not for coders, for you. It's called the Claude Certified Associate, Foundations level, and it's the newest and least understood of Anthropic's 4 certifications. Most of the internet's attention has gone to the developer and architect exams. Which is ironic because the associate has the largest audience of all 4. Every consultant, analyst, project lead, and operations person at the firms currently certifying their people by the tens of thousands. While everyone else fights over the technical credentials, this one is sitting in plain sight. This video is the complete guide. What the exam is, exactly what's on it, all 7 domains taught one by one, how the questions are constructed and how to read them, a week-by-week study plan built from free official material, and what exam day actually looks like, minute by minute. Follow it end to end and you will walk into that exam room prepared. Let's get you certified. Chapter 2, What the Associate Credential is. Anthropic aims this exam at professionals who use Claude as a day-to-day productivity tool. Operations, marketing, project management, education, communications, general knowledge work. The official guide places the candidate between 2 extremes, past the casual prompt user before the technical AI practitioner. In other words, you use Claude seriously, you get real work out of it, but you don't write code against the API and you don't need to. So let's kill the biggest misconception immediately. There is no code on this exam. No API, no Python, nothing to install. The exam tests whether you can put Claude itself to work, the chat interface, projects, artifacts, research features, connectors, and model choices, with skill and with judgment. If you've been hesitating because you're not a programmer, this exam was designed precisely for you. And if you are a programmer, don't assume it's beneath you. More on that in a moment. Who actually sits this exam? Picture 3 people. A consultant who builds a Claude project for every engagement, loads it with the client's documents, and coaches the team on getting reliable output. An operations manager who redesigned the weekly reporting process around Claude and now has to explain to leadership what it can and cannot be trusted with. A marketing lead who drafts, refines, and fact-checks campaign copy with Claude daily and knows exactly which claims need a human eye before publication. Different jobs, same underlying skill set. That skill set is the exam. But in this matters, non-technical does not mean easy. The heaviest domain on this exam isn't prompting. It's evaluating output, catching errors, spotting hallucinations, knowing when a human needs to review before anything ships. Add a full domain on governance and responsible use, and you get an exam about judgment, not tricks. That's exactly what makes it worth putting your name on, and it's why some hands-on developers would genuinely score worse here than on their own exam. Chapter 3, The Exam at a Glance. Here are the facts you'd want on a single card. 60 questions, 120 minutes, which works out to 2 minutes per question, a genuinely comfortable pace. Multiple choice and multiple response, and every multiple response question states exactly how many answers to select. No trick counting, no essay writing, no live demonstration. Scoring runs on a scale from 100 to 1000, and you pass at 720. That is not 72% of questions. It's a scaled score, so don't try to convert it in your head on exam day. Your report shows pass or fail, your scaled score, and your percent correct in every domain, which means even a bad day hands you a precise study map for the retake. The fee is $99 per attempt, the cheapest of Anthropic's 4 exams. It's proctored through Pearson VUE, online from your desk or at a physical test center, with your identity verified before you begin. Pass and the credential is valid for 12 months, with a free on-time renewal through a lighter, non-proctored assessment. Miss the renewal window, and it's the full exam at full price again, so put the date in your calendar the day your badge arrives. Registration runs through the Anthropic Partner Academy. The company joins the Claude Partner Network, which starts free at the registered level. You create your Academy account, find the Associate Certification page, and schedule through Pearson VUE. I walked through those steps in detail in the previous video, so I'll just repeat the one rule that stands above everything. Download the current official exam guide before you book. This program is new, details can shift, and that free document is the single source of truth this video is built on. Chapter 4, Reading the Blueprint Like a Strategist. The exam guide splits the content into 7 domains and crucially tells you the weight of each one. Most candidates skim past that table. It is actually the most valuable page in the document because it tells you where the points lie and therefore where your hours should go. Here's the full picture, heaviest first. Output evaluation and validation, 21%, the single biggest slice, 1 question in 5. Workflow integration and solution design, 16%. Governance, risk, and responsible use, 15%. Prompting and task execution, 14%. Then 12% domains, product and model selection and configuration and knowledge management. And finally, troubleshooting and optimization at 10%. Now do the math the exam guide is quietly showing you. Evaluation, governance, and troubleshooting together are nearly half the exam, and all 3 are about judgment applied to Claude's output, not about writing clever prompts. Prompting, the thing everyone assumes the exam is about, is 1 question in 7. Here's the picture I want in your head. This exam doesn't certify you as a prompter. It certifies you as the person in the room who knows what to do with what Claude produces. Study in weight order, not in curiosity order, and you've already outplayed most of the room. Chapter 5, How the Questions Think. Before we walk the domains, let's dissect the question format itself, because every point on this exam flows through it. The official sample questions follow a consistent anatomy. First a workplace situation, then an observable symptom or a decision point, and finally the actual question, which is almost always some version of what should this person do, or what best explains this. Situation, symptom, ask. Once you see the skeleton, every question gets easier. Now the wrong answers because they're crafted, not random. 3 distractor species show up again and again. The extremist, never use AI for this or fully automate it when the scoring answer lies in the middle, with review and judgment. The symptom-treater, a fix that makes the annoyance go away without touching the cause, like rewriting a prompt when the real problem is stale knowledge in a project. And the technically true but irrelevant, a correct statement that doesn't answer what was asked. Learn to name these 3 on site, and you'll feel wrong answers before you can articulate why. 3 reading habits then that pay for themselves. Read the final sentence of the scenario twice. It carries the actual ask, and the middle is often decoration. On multiple response questions, trust the stated count, exactly that many, no more. And when 2 answers both look right, go back to the scenario hunting for the tiebreaker detail. The sensitivity of the data, the destination of the output, who else is in the room. The exam plants that detail deliberately. This chapter is short, but keep it loaded. We'll use it in every domain that follows. Chapter 6, Domain 1, Prompting and Task Execution. 14% of the exam. This is the craft domain, and the guide names 4 skills. Create effective prompts, decompose complex tasks, iterate to improve output, and adapt your strategy to the type of task. An effective prompt in Claude terms reliably carries 4 ingredients. Role, who Claude should be for this task, a careful editor, a skeptical analyst. Context, what it needs to know, the background a good freelancer would ask for before starting. Format, what the output should look like, a table, an email, a 1-page brief with headings. And examples, when the shape matters. Show 1 input and its ideal output, and quality jumps more than any adjective can manage. The exam loves to show you a vague prompt and 4 rewrites, and ask which fix helps most. The best answer is nearly always the one adding missing context or a concrete example, not the one adding polite words. Task decomposition is the second skill, recognizing when a request is too big for 1 prompt. Analyze this contract, find the risks, and draft the client email. That's 3 tasks wearing 1 sentence. Split them, feed each step the previous step's output in quality compounds. Iteration means treating the first answer as a draft. Tell Claude specifically what to change, shorter, more formal, laid with the recommendation, rather than starting over or worse, accepting mediocrity. An adapting strategy means noticing that brainstorming wants loose, open prompts while analysis wants tight, structured ones. One style does not fit all tasks. The exam lens for this domain. A scenario tells you a team lead asked Claude to, quote, make our report better and got generic advice back. Which revision helps most? One option adds please and thank you. One asks Claude to try again. One switches to a bigger model. And one specifies the audience, attaches the report, and names the outcome. Tighten the executive summary for a board audience. That last one adds context and intent, and it's the point on the board. Vague in, generic out is this domain's favorite story. The fix is always specificity, not ceremony. Chapter 7, Domain 2, Output Evaluation and Validation. 21% the heavyweight, one question in 5, and its core idea deserves to be said plainly. Claude is a brilliant colleague who is occasionally, confidently wrong. Your value and your exam score comes from knowing how to check. The signature failure to master is the hallucination, output that is fluent, plausible, and false. The classic tells are fabricated specifics, citation numbers that look real, quotes attributed to real people who never said them, statistics with no source, publication details that check out only until you actually check. The rule the exam rewards, the more specific and consequential a factual claim is, the more it demands verification against an authoritative source before anyone acts on it. Not because Claude is usually wrong, but because being right most of the time isn't a standard any business can ship on. The second skill is knowing when human review is required, not optional. Anything legal, financial, medical, or reputational. Anything going to a client or the public under your company's name. Anything where an error is expensive and hard to reverse. The exam frames these as judgment calls. It describes output and a destination and asks what happens next. When in doubt, the defensible answer is the one with a qualified human in the loop. And notice the domain's quieter second half. Edit, adapt, and refine outputs for the intended audience, organize and curate information, and choose the right output format. An artifact for something the team will reuse, inline text for a quick answer, structured data when it feeds another system. Evaluation, in this exam's view, isn't just error hunting. It's the full editorial pass that turns raw model output into something you'd sign. The exam lens. Claude produces a market analysis including a precise-sounding claim. An industry report from a named firm says adoption grew by a suspiciously exact figure. The draft is due to a client tomorrow. The extremist option says never use AI research. The lazy option says ship it, the firm is real. The symptom-treater says ask Claude if it's sure, which note is not verification. The scoring answer, verify the claim against the actual source, and if it can't be located, cut or reframe it before anything reaches the client. One question in 5 on this paper is some costume change of that exact situation. Chapter 8, Domain 3, Product and Model Selection, 12%. This domain asks a deceptively simple question. For the task in front of you, which tool and which brain? Claude comes in model tiers and the exam expects you to know the trade. Haiku, fastest and cheapest, built for quick, simple, high-volume work. Sonnet, the everyday workhorse balancing quality, speed, and cost. Opus, the most capable tier for the hardest reasoning when quality outranks everything else. The pattern to internalize is matching, not ranking. Routine summarization on the most expensive tier wastes money, and intricate analysis on the fastest tier wastes quality. The right answer is always the cheapest model that clears the quality bar. If you're curious what's actually inside these models and why the tiers behave differently, our channel has a whole series on that, link in the description. The feature side works the same way, a quick chat for a one-off question. A project when work is ongoing and Claude should remember your context and files. Research features when the answer must come from current, cited sources rather than the model's memory. Artifacts when the output is a document, a deliverable, a thing. The exam's favorite trap here is recency. If a scenario needs current information, prices, regulations, this week's news, the answer involving research and citations beats the answer that trusts the model's memory every time. And the domain's final objective is knowing the limits. Context runs out. Long conversations drift, earlier details fade, and quality sags. The skill is knowing the 3 escape hatches and when each applies. Summarize the conversation so far and continue. Persist the durable knowledge into a project so it survives, or accept that the honest move is a fresh start. The exam lens here is usually a symptom question. Claude has, quote, forgotten instructions from much earlier in a very long session. The scoring diagnosis is context, not model quality, and the fix is one of those three hatches, not indignation. Chapter 9, Domain 4, Workflow Integration and Solution Design. 16%, the second biggest domain, and the one that separates a person who uses Claude from a person who deploys it. The question shifts from can you prompt to can you look at a business process and redesign it with Claude inside. The method the exam rewards starts with requirements, not with prompts. Map the workflow as it exists. Find the steps that eat time, the first draft, the research pass, the summarizing, the reformatting. Those are Claude's natural homes. Then decide step by step whether Claude augments the human or handles the step with review or stays out entirely. The wrong answers in these scenarios are almost always the extremes. Automate everything or bolt Claude on with no plan at all. Sound familiar? That's the extremist distractor from Chapter 5, Wearing Business Clothes. And there's an objective here most candidates skim. Communicate Claude's value and limitations to stakeholders. Honestly, in both directions. What it does brilliantly: drafting, analysis, research support, iteration at speed. What it can't promise: perfect facts, mind reading, or accountability, which stays with people. Exam scenarios put you in the meeting where someone oversells or undersells AI and reward the answer that's specific, measured, and true. That's not exam technique, that's the actual job. The exam lens: a team spends 2 days each month assembling a status report, gathering updates, summarizing, formatting, distributing. A scenario asks for the best redesign. Full automation with no review is sitting there looking efficient, and it's wrong because the report carries commitments leadership acts on. Refusing to change anything is wrong in the other direction. The scoring shape: Claude drafts from the gathered updates inside a configured project. A human reviews and owns the final, and the team's 2 days become an afternoon. Augment the judgment, automate the toil. That sentence scores points across this entire domain. Chapter 10, Domain 5, Configuration and Knowledge Management, 12%. If Domain 1 was about asking well, this domain is about setting up Claude so your whole team asks well by default. Its centerpiece is the project. A project bundles 3 things: custom instructions, which act like a standing brief that applies to every conversation; uploaded knowledge, your documents, guidelines, and reference material; and where enabled, connectors to live sources like Google Drive or your email. The skill being tested is writing instructions at the right altitude, specific enough to shape behavior, always answer in our house style, cite the uploaded guidelines when relevant, flag anything that conflicts with the brand document, yet general enough to survive 100 different conversations. Instructions that read like a job description for Claude, not like a single task. The examiners also care about the unglamorous part: maintenance. Knowledge sources go stale, and a project built on last year's pricing sheet is a hallucination factory with a professional interface. Configuration is a garden, not a monument. Someone owns it, tends it, and prunes it when reality changes. That framing alone will earn you points. The exam lens: a sales team's project answered pricing questions perfectly for months and has now quietly started quoting discontinued packages. 4 options appear: write more forceful instructions, telling Claude to be accurate, switch to a more capable model, restart the conversation. Or check and update the uploaded pricing knowledge. The first 3 are symptom-treaters. The model is faithfully reporting the stale document it was given. Update the knowledge. When a scenario says it used to work and now it doesn't, ask what changed in the world because the project didn't. Chapter 11, Domain 6, Governance, Risk, and Responsible Use. 15%, and pay attention because this is the domain that quietly decides who passes. Technical people understudy it, business people assume common sense will cover it. Neither works, it has its own vocabulary, and the exam uses it. The heart of it is data sensitivity. Before anything goes into any AI tool, you ask, is this personal data protected under regulations like Europe's privacy law? Is it confidential business information, yours or a client's? Is it regulated, health, financial, legal? The exam scenarios are concrete. A colleague wants to paste a customer list, a contract, a patient record into a chat. The correct response is rarely an outright never. It's knowing your organization's policy, the approved tools and data classes, and where your obligations to clients and regulators sit. The pattern that scores: classify first, then decide, using policy rather than instinct. The second half is judging use cases: appropriate, drafting, summarizing, research support, brainstorming, analysis with review. Requiring care: anything that makes decisions about people, employment, credit, medical, legal, where AI can inform but qualified humans must decide, and where honesty about AI involvement matters. The instinct that scores: use is fine, unreviewed authority is not. If your organization has an AI policy, that policy wins over your convenience every time. The exam lens: a hiring manager drowning in applications wants Claude to rank candidates and auto-reject the bottom half. What's the best guidance? Refusing all AI involvement is the extremist. Letting it quietly decide is the liability. The scoring shape: Claude can assist, summarizing applications against stated criteria, but a human makes every decision about a person. The process follows company policy and employment law, and its use is transparent. Decisions about people are this domain's brightest line. Answer from that line, and its 15% becomes free points instead of a trap. Chapter 12, Domain 7, Troubleshooting and Optimization. 10%, the smallest domain and the friendliest because it's everything we've covered, pointed at things going wrong. Claude's output is disappointing. Diagnose before you fix. Vague answers usually mean a vague prompt. Add context, add an example. Wrong facts mean verify, then ground the task in provided sources rather than memory. Off-style output means the format instruction or the project brief needs sharpening. Degrading quality deep into a long conversation usually means context exhaustion. Summarize and restart. 4 symptoms, 4 causes, 4 fixes. That little table is most of this domain. The optimization half is the same skill with a cost lens. Notice the repeated task that deserves a project instead of a fresh prompt every morning, the overpowered model doing routine work at premium price, the 3-step manual dance that one well-designed prompt replaces. The exam gives you a symptom and 4 plausible fixes, and rewards the candidate who addresses the cause instead of the annoyance, which by now you can smell. Diagnose like that, and this final domain is the easiest 10% on the paper. Chapter 13, Your Free Study Stack. Before the plan, the materials, because for this exam the best stack costs exactly nothing, and knowing what each piece is for keeps you from drowning in resources. Piece 1, the official exam guide, your constitution. Domains, weights, every objective, sample questions in the house style, and the registration rules. You'll read it twice, once at the start to plan, once near the end as a checklist, turning every objective into a question. Can I actually do this? Piece 2, Anthropic Academy, the free course platform. Its introductory Claude courses cover the platform features this exam lives on, projects, artifacts, models, research features. Piece 3, Claude itself, because for an exam about using a product well, the product is the textbook. Every drill in the next chapter happens inside it. And Piece 4, one honest sentence on paid practice questions. Independent question banks exist, and some are decent as a dress rehearsal, but they are not the syllabus, and the dumps that promise real exam questions are both against the rules and frequently wrong. Nothing behind a paywall is required to pass this exam. Chapter 14, Your 3-week study plan. Here's a realistic plan for someone who already uses Claude at work at roughly 5 focused hours a week. If Claude is genuinely new to you, run the same plan over 5 or 6 weeks instead. Same steps, gentler pace. The theme throughout this exam is scenario-based, so hands-on experience converts to points at a better rate than notes do. We study by doing. Week 1, Foundations and the Craft Domains. Read the exam guide end to end, it's short, and rate yourself honestly 1 to 5 on each of the 7 domains. That rating decides where your hours go. Then work prompting and model selection together, and not by reading. Pick 3 real tasks from your actual job and run them properly. Role, context, format, examples. Decompose one genuinely complex task into steps and chain them. Run the same task on different model tiers and feel the difference in speed and depth. End the week by deliberately writing one bad prompt and fixing it 3 different ways. Nothing teaches the anatomy faster. Week 2, the heavyweights, evaluation and workflow design, together over a third of the exam, so this is your biggest week. Practice the evaluation drill deliberately. Take Claude outputs, including a research task with citations, and hunt the fabricated reference, the too convenient statistic, the claim you'd want verified. For each, decide, would I ship this, and what review does it need first? Then sketch one real workflow from your job, redesigned with Claude inside, deciding for each step. Augment, automate with review, or leave human. Finish by explaining that redesign out loud as if to a skeptical stakeholder, limitations included. If you can do that honestly, you've just rehearsed both domains at once. Week 3, governance, configuration, troubleshooting, and rehearsal. Read your own organization's AI policy if one exists. It makes the governance domain concrete, and if none exists, skim any published corporate AI use policy to see the shape. Build one real project with instructions and knowledge, use it daily, then deliberately break it. Ask something its knowledge doesn't cover and watch what happens, because that's the troubleshooting domain live. In the final days, reread the exam guide as a checklist, work whatever practice questions you have under time pressure, and let your weakest domain, not your favorite one, own your last study hours. Then book the exam while the material is hot. A scheduled date is the best study aid ever invented. Chapter 15, Exam Day and What Comes Next. Logistics first, because avoidable technical drama has sunk more exam mornings than hard questions have. If you're testing online, run Pearson VUE system check on the actual computer you'll use, the day before, not the hour before. You'll need a quiet private room, a clear desk, your identification ready, and expect the check-in ritual. Identity verification, photos of your workspace, no notes, no second monitor, no phone within reach. It's mildly theatrical, and it's precisely why this credential means something. If that setup sounds fragile at your home, book a test center and make it somebody else's problem. Inside the exam, the arithmetic is your friend. 60 questions, 120 minutes, 2 minutes each, and most questions need far less. Now cash in Chapter 5. Read every scenario's last sentence twice. Trust the stated count on multiple response questions. Name the distractor species, the extremist, the symptom-treater, the true but irrelevant. When two answers both seem right, hunt the tiebreaker detail, the data's sensitivity, the output's destination, the stakeholder in the room. Flag anything uncertain and move on. The review screen exists precisely for that, and a first pass through all 60 beats a perfectionist crawl that leaves 10 unseen. Then the outcomes, pass, and your Cridley badge arrives, goes on your profile and starts a 12-month clock. Renew on time and renewal is free, so calendar it now. If it doesn't go your way, the score report shows your percent in every domain. Study the weak ones, and the first retake window opens after 14 days, then 30, then 90, up to 4 attempts in a rolling year. The worst case is a delay, not a verdict. Either way, you now know exactly where you stand, which is more than most people ever learn about their own skills. And that's the complete path, what the associate exam is, all 7 domains, how the questions think, the stack, the plan, and the room itself. Everything here came from the official exam guide and public documentation, and the description has a dated study checklist with every link, yours free, no strings. Next in the series, the developer exam, where we cross over to the API side of the program, tool use, agents, and all. If this guide moved you closer to certified, a like helps the next candidate find it, and subscribing means the developer deep dive lands in your feed the moment it's ready. We're building AI up from the ground, one blueprint at a time. I'll see you in the next one.